couple of really, really enchanting points today that I saw in the Alter, just remarkable. So here, let's just pick it up on page 958, 5 lines from the bottom. Ve'ata Yisrael shma lachukim ha'mishpatim asher anochi melamed eschem lasos. Listen to the chukim. L'man tichyu uvasem v'rishtem es ha'aretz asher Hashem lokei avosechem nosein lachem. That you should live and come to the land that Hashem your God is going to give you. Lo sosifu al hadavar asher nimchim et tzaveh eschem v'lo sigru mimenu. Do not add on and do not detract from the mitzvahs. Asher Hashem Elokechem asher lishmor es mitzvahs asher nimchim et tzaveh eschem. Do not add or detract. So here the Torah says you can't add on to the mitzvahs, you can't detract from the mitzvahs, and the question becomes why? You just check, is that on? No, the air conditioner is on. The question is the camera's on. It's always it's on. Okay. No, the cool is listen. If it's cooler still is, I know no problem. So the question is, what's wrong with adding or detracting? The Torah says, don't add and don't detract. So one of the things that you kind of sense instinctively. Avi, while you're up, just close that door. One of the things you sense instinctively is don't detract. You were told to do something, don't do less than you're supposed to. What's wrong with doing more? Add another 5th tzitzis, add another parsha in the tefillin. When the kohanim give a bracha in the morning, instead of three brachas, give a 4th bracha. And it says openly not to do that. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with adding on? So one of the answers is because if you change it, it implies a deficiency in Hashem's Torah. Hashem gave a Torah; it's a perfect Torah. And if you tamper with a recipe, the worst thing a wife could do is tamper with the recipe. If it's working well, leave it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's good, don't all of a sudden add raisins. Don't. If it's good, don't all of a sudden add chocolate chips, and don't put in more cinnamon. Just stick with the recipe. If you don't stick with the recipe, then everything changes. There's this fate. Can you imagine a guy says to his wife, they go and eat out for Shabbos. They go to their neighbors, they go to their friends for Shabbos. They have this unbelievable apple cinnamon cake. And the husband's just gaga over this apple cinnamon cake. So he comes home and he says to his wife, I want you to make me some apple cinnamon cake. Get the recipe. So she calls up, gets her. She makes the apple cinnamon cake, and it doesn't come out the same. The husband takes one bite, and he's like, I don't know. And the wife said, I don't know what went wrong. So she calls her friend. She says, well, did you use these, the special Jonathan apples that I told you to use, those special apples? She goes, oh, no, I didn't have apples. I used pears. Well, did you use that special margarine that I told you? I didn't have margarine. So I used oil. Well, did you use that special fresh cinnamon, freshly ground cinnamon? I didn't have cinnamon, so I used oregano. All right, so instead of an apple cinnamon cake, so you ended up with an oregano pear monstrosity. So what happened? Because you tampered with the recipe. Take a chumash, Jaffe, page 958. It's actually good to see you. Yeah, maybe. Jew man. There's an apple. You say you're tampering with the recipe. The Torah is a recipe. And what we're doing is we're every mitzvah you do down here is having an effect in the cosmos. So if you tamper with the recipe, page 958, so then you're adding or detracting, it's having an effect, number one. Number two, there's an implication of an imperfection in the Torah, that Hashem didn't give the perfect Torah, that the Torah has a flaw. So the Torah says don't add or detract, number one. Number two, there's a very famous what's it called? The parable from the Dubna Magid. The Dubna Magid was a famous speaker who was known for his remarkable. He had a parable for every occasion. In Hebrew, a mashal. He had a parable for every occasion. So I think it was the Vilna Gaon or somebody once asked him, "How do you manage to have a parable for every occasion?" He says, "I'll give you a parable." So he says there's this king is they're driving through the forest, and they see this guy who's taking target practice with his arrows. Guys just shooting arrows at a target, and they see that every single arrow is in the bullseye. They said to the guy, how did you do that? He says, well, first I shot the arrows, then I drew the bullseyes around them. So the Mag says, first I have the parable, then I fit it to something. That's how I have a parable for everything. So the Mag says like this, Reuven comes over to Shimon and he says, hi, can I borrow a shovel? Right? So he says, sure, and he gives him the shovel to borrow, and the next day he brings it back the big shovel with a little shovel. He says, what's with the little shovel? He says, your shovel had a baby. Mazel tov. He says, what, are you nuts? He says, no, I'm telling you. He says, you want to give me a shovel? I'll take a shovel. But he says, no, I'm telling you. Okay. The next day he says, can I borrow your broomstick? So he gives him the broomstick, and he comes back, he gives it back with two little broomsticks. He says, Mazel tov, twins. He says, yeah, you're out of your mind. All right, if you want to give me a couple of broomsticks. The next day he comes over, he says, can I borrow your priceless silver Shabbos candelabra? He says, sure. So he lends him the silver candelabra. The next day he doesn't show up. 2 days later he doesn't show up. By the third day he's getting nervous. He goes to the house, he says, hey, what's with my candelabra? He says, I'm sorry, it died. He said, wait a minute, candelabras can't die. He says, and brooms can have twins? So the Dubna Maggid said, the problem with adding and detracting is if you add in one area, you're going to detract somewhere else. You'll rationalize, oh, I did a good mitzvah over here, so here I don't have to be as careful with kashrus. One way or another, you're going to add or detract. Therefore, Torah says, don't. Do it my way. Just do what Hashem says. Hashem says, do it my way. Don't add or detract. And you'll notice that Moshe Rabbeinu over here, Moshe Rabbeinu over here specifically is talking about what cost him going into Eretz Yisrael. What was it that cost Moshe Rabbeinu? He had two flaws. Flaw number one, he was told to speak to the rock. What did he do? He added on, he hit. And flaw number two is when you had the incident with Zimri and Cosby, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu pick up the spear and kill them? Why did he leave it for Pinchas? They had reasons, but at the end of the day, he should have done it. And therefore, he detracted. And Moshe Rabbeinu is showing the Jewish people, adding and detracting is what cost me going into Eretz Yisrael. That cost me. So don't add and don't detract, number one. Number two, what's the connection to the previous pasuk here? Take a look. All of a sudden, he talks about adding and detracting. In the previous pasuk, in pasuk Chaf Tes, he said, "Vaneshev bagai mul beis peor." We were sitting opposite this place called Beis Peor. What's the connection? After Beis Peor comes the, what do you call it? There should be chumashim. There are chumashim over here if you want to. He said, we sat the guy mul beis peor. What was in Baal Peor? The Jewish people did averas. What were the averas? They were, so we said when we learned about this with the daughters of Moab and the daughters of Midian, said the guys who got involved with the Midianite girl, with the Moabite girls, that was the ordinary people who were looking to sin. The guys who got involved with the Midianite girls, it says the Bnei Yisrael, it calls them the Bnei Yisrael, they were the more sophisticated, higher level people. And it all started because Baal Peor is that idol worship where you relieved yourself in front of the idol. Remember that? We spoke about that how you worship Baal Peor is by relieving yourself in front of the idol. So what did they do? They started out by making an attempt to degrade the idol. How did they decide to degrade the idol? By relieving themselves on the idol, in front of the idol. Mistake. Shouldn't have gotten involved at all. You added on, and what did that lead to? That leads to sinning with the Midianite girls. And that's a connection. Don't add on and don't detract because it's not going to, there's never anything good that happens. Don't add on. By the way, this happens with kids in the house too. Any similarities to real life are purely intentional, kids. I'm sure there have been times where your parents have asked you to do something and somehow you didn't have the energy to do it. Then there was a fun thing to do that you did do. And the fun, like riding the lawnmower around the lawn, that's good, yeah. But going and doing the laundry or something, no. And your parents, don't do me any favors. Don't do the fun things. Do what I ask you to do. That's what Torah says. Don't add and don't detract. I don't know. In South Africa, you probably did pick a hand up in the house, except to eat. That's what they say. Intense exercise after 40 is dangerous, particularly with a knife and a fork. All right. Take a look at Pasuk Dalet. Pasuk Gimel, sorry, top of 960. Einechem haros es asher asa Hashem eval por. You've seen what Hashem did to Baal Peor. Ki chol ha'ish asher holach acharei Baal Peor hishmidu Hashem lokecha mikirbecha. Hashem destroyed those who went after Baal Peor. Again, that's a connection to adding and detracting. Yeah, what did you ever do in the house? Give me one example of something you ever did. Go ahead. I've ever taken volunteers. Tell me something. What? You washed the dishes?
Yeah, man.
Really?
Yeah, man.
What's that?
Well, my dishes.
Your dishes.
My
Uh-huh. Nothing. Can't think of anything. Nothing comes to mind.
The basement.
Well, you're from Chicago. You know, huh? You did, huh? I'm not talking about the refrigerator. You cleaned out the refrigerator, you mean? No, I mean the refrigerator you cleaned out. Yeah, well, I used to do that too. Yeah. Oh, the kitchen. Oh, you cleaned the kitchen. Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, I'll bet I could just eat off the floor when you got done with it. Yeah, I'll bet. Boy, you know, we should learn about honesty here. You who cleave to Hashem, your God, you are all alive today. Now pay attention, gentlemen. How can you cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The Gemara says Hashem is a fire. The Gemara says, how is it shaykh to cleave to Hashem? Hashem is an eish ochla. He's a consuming fire. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, if you provide for Talmidei Chachamim, or you marry off your daughter to Talmidei Chachamim, then it's as if you're Hashem v'atem hadveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem. If you become a Talmid Chacham and the daughter marries you, so then that guy has had the schus of connecting up with the Talmid Chacham. But the way the Torah says, v'atem hadveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem, how do you cleave to Hashem? By learning Torah. What if you can't learn Torah? The ultimate way of connection is through Torah, that we know. That's the ultimate. What if a person can't learn Torah, doesn't have time, doesn't have the ability, doesn't have the stamina to sit and learn? It's difficult, it's challenging to learn Torah. So what do? Support a Talmid Chacham who's learning Torah. Then you're connected, then V'atem adveikim Hashem, then you're cleaving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But there's a very important point here. The one of Forshim says, this is crucial, that V'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem. Number one, by cleaving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning devotion to Torah, Chayim kulchem hayom, they'll give you life. And sometimes people go through it, there's a certain feeling of emptiness, of where are we going with all this? You want fulfillment, you want contentment, V'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem, cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Be involved in a Torah life, learning Torah, mitzvahs, living as a Torah Jew. Chayim kulchem hayom, then you have satisfaction. Then you don't live with that sense of emptiness, that sense of nothingness, number one. Number two, and this is the crucial point, V'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem, you don't have to deprive. We do not have to be deprived. Chayim kulchem hayom, you can live well, eat well, sleep well, live well, financially. That's not a conflict. That's not a contradiction to cleaving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To the contrary, we have to know who we are. We are people who our basic needs have to be met. And they have to be met at a level that we're realistic. We're not Nevardikers from the 1920s who can live on bread and salted fish. We are people who need our basic needs. And V'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem, you really want to be an upbeat, enthusiastic Torah Jew, Chayim kulchem hayom, live like a normal person. It doesn't require any sort of suffering and deprivation. We don't need that. We're not capable. Frankly, we're not capable. We're not the Stipler, and we're not the Vilna Gaon. We are not, the Vilna Gaon, they say what he ate. He used to minimize his pleasure from this world. He would take his bread, and he would roll it into a ball, chew it as few times as possible, and swallow it, to minimize his pleasure from this world. He would chew it as few times as possible, put it in his bread, and swallow it. I do the same thing with lemon meringue pie. Try to minimize my pleasure on the third piece as preparation for the fourth piece. And, let's be honest. They talk about big tzaddikim who took a taste of cholent on Shabbos. Take a taste for the mitzvah of eating cholent. So, a taste of cholent, I don't know what you call a taste of cholent. By us, it means tasting the entire pot, and then going on to round two. Let's be real. Let's be real about who we are. No need for suffering and deprivation. We can't handle it. You have to know, if you try to exercise restraint in any area, let's say exercise. I'm talking about permissible areas. Forbidden areas, it's too bad. You can't. You have to exercise restraint. You just can't. You're not allowed to indulge. You're not allowed to be involved. But even in permissible areas, let's say I want to try controlling I'll try to go without dessert, just as a discipline. Let's see if I can handle not having dessert. I'm not talking about for weight concerns. I just want to discipline myself a little bit. So a lot depends on how you feel afterwards. If you walk away from the table and an hour later you feel, wow, that was really good. I feel I'm in control. If all that happens is you sit down and learn a Gemara and you open it up to Amarov, a lemon meringue pie, and that's all you're thinking about is, why did I walk away from that stuff? You're not holding there. I'm not holding there. So the heck with it. Just eat your dessert and then go learn. You understand? A lot depends on your mood afterwards. Are you upbeat or the same thing people ask about, what kind of music? Are you allowed to listen to, let's say, Goyish music? So if it's got suggestive lyrics, you're not allowed to. I guess there goes Goyish music. But if it's something, what about a tune? What about a tune? Just a tune without could you listen to the tune? The answer is, what do you feel like after you finish listening to the tune? People learn classical music. There were Gedolim who used to learn Torah while listening to classical music. They learned classical music in the background. I don't know if I heard classical music, it put me in a bad mood. There were Gedolim listen to classical music. What about regular music? What about Jewish music, what they call contemporary Jewish music, which is neither contemporary nor Jewish nor music, but that's what they call it. So what happens after you listen to it? Do you then go to a beis medrash and sit down and learn? Do you daven a good mincha afterwards, or do you feel like breaking a window? Right? So if that's the gauge. That's the gauge. What kind of mood are you in after you exercising restraint? And if we're not on that level, we're not on that level. So what should we do? Just go and learn some Torah and do a mitzvah and do some chesed and don't talk lashon hara and negate fight. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to Goyish music, not to try to get us all.
No.
Secular Jewish music in Israel, people like what does Rabbi think about that? Like the same category.
I am not happy about secular. There are two types of secular Jewish music. There's the real secular music, just with Israeli, bad lyrics in Hebrew, just like pop, regular that sort of thing. Then there's what these contemporary artists, what they call them artists, where they're making up spiritual lyrics. And, with people feel I'm inspired by it, by certain, somebody like Yishai Rebo, who happens to be very, very talented. But frankly, my attitude is, if I want spiritual lyrics, David HaMelech was good enough for me. Take Tehillim and put Tehillim to, which is what we always used to do. Take Psukim, take Tehillim. I don't need guys coming up nowadays and singing songs about Hashem, so that you can have a concert and then walk out and talk about how you were so spiritually and uplifted. Yeah? Where did it uplift you to right after the concert? Did it just took you right to the beis medrash, huh? Uh-huh. With the mechitza, without the mechitza, with the mechitza, over the other side of the mechitza, and all, drop the nonsense. You like the music, I have no problem. I have no problem if you want to listen to the music because you enjoy the music. I have no problem with people enjoying themselves. But call a spade a spade. That's where I get it. Don't tell me that it's a mitzvah. Don't tell me that call it what it is. That's my issue with it. It's nothing more than some guy making up lyrics. There's no kedusha to it whatsoever. You can listen to it in the bathroom, no problem. There's no what do you call it? There's nothing to it other than entertainment. That's all it is. All the Jewish music industry is it's entertainment. Don't tell me you're inspired by it, this, that, and the other. I want to ask you a question. A person who was told he had 2 weeks to live, would he spend those 2 weeks listening to Jewish music because it's so inspiring and it's a mitzvah? Somehow I don't think so. How's the laundromat business?
It's so good.
Yeah.
The economy's killing us. 20 shekel. It's too expensive.
Poor guy. He went to go to an Airbnb. So his Airbnb ended up on top of a laundromat. That's one of the funniest things. I don't know. I slept in a good, comfortable bed that night. I don't know about you. I slept in a washing machine. We slept in the washing machine. Airbnb. So that's the idea. Okay, Chaim Kulchem. Now there is a Chassam Sofer, I think, so something incredible over here. It says that what happens to people? The Gemara talks about people who lose their chelik in olam haba. Excuse me 1 second. Gemara talks about losing people who've lost their olam haba, even groups of people, the Dor Habidbor, Korach, different. And their machlokas is in the Gemara. So there is an opinion, lo yidach mimenu nidach. Nobody will ever go lost. Even the people who lose their olam haba, eventually they'll come back. Eventually they'll come back. Lo yidach, it's not a good route to take, but eventually they'll come back. I knew a woman in Chicago, a friend of my mother's, who, in America, in Israel, the lights are very, very clear. In America, when you want to make a left turn past traffic, so you wait till it turns yellow and you wait till traffic clears, then you make the left turn, right? You got to wait and then you make that left turn across the 2 lanes of traffic. There was a woman we knew, she did not do that. So anytime she had to go shopping, like in the neighborhood, she routed herself where she'd only have right turns. She would never make a left turn. She was too nervous about making the left turn. Yeah, she was last seen. She went shopping in Chicago. She was last seen in Cincinnati. But, so it's not a good route to take. It's a very circuitous route. So it says there is an opinion, lo yidach midenu nidach, that even those who lose their chelik, they're not going to go there. Eventually they're going to come back. Eventually they're going to be brought back. But, so the Chassam Sofer says how? Says the Chassam Sofer, atem adveikim v'Hashem Elokeichem. Because of you who are learning Torah, you who are devoted, chayim kulchem hayom, you bring everybody to life. Your Torah, your learning, will cause that the others who are lost, that they're eventually going to come back. That's what the Chassam Sofer says. Now, if you look at Pasuk Zayin. So here is a Pasuk Vav. I mean, if you guys don't, this is so real. This is written 3,500 years ago, right? Torah was given 3,500 years ago. And what you read in this book is so applicable today. It says, Ushmartem v'asisem, keep the Torah, ki hi chochmaschem ubinaschem la'enei amim. It is your wisdom and your understanding in the eyes of the nations. Asher yishmeu es kol hachukim ha'ela, they hear these statutes, ve'amru, rak am chocham v'novon hagoy ha'godol hazeh. What a smart nation. Right, well, a bunch of smart Jews. Just a bunch of smart Jews. Right, 25% of the Nobel Prize winners, Jews. A bunch of smart Jews. Right, technology, Jews. Anything smart. So the nations look at us. They even call us the people of the book. They call us the people of the book. If they know Jews in law school, they ace it. Especially yeshiva guys. Yeshiva guys who've learned Gemara, they go to law school, the breeze. Because they're used to that sort of thinking. They're used to that sort of logical thinking. Sometimes they over-logic it. It's too logical. The professor can't follow their logic. The Gemara says Rabbi Meir was so brilliant. Rabbi Meir was the most brilliant of his generation, but they didn't paskin like him because they couldn't fathom the depths of his brilliance. Sometimes you can be so brilliant, it sounds good, but I don't understand what you're saying, so we can't paskin like you. So it says the nations look at us in admiration because the Jews are so smart. And specifically, what they're impressed by is what's called Sod HaIbur. You know what Sod HaIbur is? The calculation of when the new moon appears, which we know is 29 days and a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of chalakim every month. They've tried working it out scientifically and cannot get as close to it as we've gotten with our tradition on it. Now, who figured that out? Without a computer. And they're going, look, where'd you get that from? It's very impressive. Very impressive. So what's his name? What did Mark Zuckerberg do? A smart Jew. Now, why is a Jew in there? How did a Jew get in there? Okay, the other guys aren't. What's his name? Bill Gates isn't, right? But these are the guy who is the other guy, the other Jewish computer guy. There's another Jewish. Who is it? Sam Altman. There you go. And then you got what's it called? Waze. Waze is two Israeli guys. They developed Waze. The whole world has Waze now. They developed it and sold it for a couple of $1 billion. That's pretty smart. Now that's a smart Jew. They saw it. They unloaded. Got a couple of $1 billion. So they look at us as being smart. Now, take a look at Pasuk Zion. Ki mi gogol mi goy godol asher lo elokim krovim elav. Who is a nation that has a God who's so close? Ka Hashem elokeinu b'chol kareinu elav. Like Hashem, our God, anytime we call out to Him. So there was something I wanted to tell you about that. The Chazon Ish was asked, how does one strengthen his emunah? How do you strengthen your emunah? It's always something we're working on. How do we strengthen our emunah, our faith in God? Chazon Ish says this pasuk, Kashem Elokeinu b'chol kareinu, by asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for what you want, that strengthens your emunah. Well, it's a form of davening. But by asking for it, we strengthen our emunah because we're acknowledging that Hashem has the ability to give. And when we have something, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That strengthens our connection. And it's a good idea every single day, daven 3 times a day. When you say modim anachnu lach, we thank you, Rabbi Hashem. It's a good idea at modim, every time you daven, think of at least one thing that you've got to thank for. Think of one thing. Your parents, your money, your parnasa, your health, the Ohr Somayach. Something good that happened to you that day. The bus came on time. The bus came at all. Thanks. Say, Modi Manachla. Thank you, Rabbi Hashem, for giving me parnasa. Thank you for giving me health. Thank you for giving me, thank you for giving me that. Everybody, the other things we need. But one thing, that strengthens the connection. Okay, now watch this. Here we go. Pasuk test. You're going to love this biddy. Raki shomer lecho shmor nafshecha me'od. Pasuk test. Take heed. It sounds like something out of Shakespeare. Raki shomer lecha, be careful. Ushmor nafshecha me'od. Pen tishkach es advarim asher ro einecha, lest you forget the things you've seen. Ufen yasuru milvavcha kol yamei chayecha, that you remove it all your life. Ve'odatam levanecha v'necha, you should make it known to your children and your grandchildren. Take a look at Rashi. Raki shomer lecha, right column of Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom, 3 lines from the top. Raki shomer lecha pen tishkach es advarim. Oz. Then kishilot tishkechu osam, when you don't forget them, v'tasum ala mitasam, and you fulfill the Torah properly, techashvu chachamim unevonim, you'll be considered wise. V'im te'absu osam b'toch shikha, if you distort it, techashvu shotim, you're considered foolish. I want to tell you something. There are so many people who have experienced, when we are loyal to Torah, the goyim respect us. They hate us either way. Doesn't matter what we do. The anti-Semites are not all goyim, obviously, but nice chunk. The anti-Semitism in America, the group right now, the studies they claim in America, racial attacks are 10 times by Jews than everybody else. Anti-Semitism. But when they see us living like Torah Jews, they respect us much more than we're trying to be like them. There have been so many cases of goyim who have respected Jews and allowed Jews when they see consistency in your Judaism. They respect you. You have a principle. People respect principles. And when you're Jewish and you're not living like a Jew, so what are you any different than us? What's there to respect over here? Number one. Number 2, the Torah says over here, got to remember Torah. And the Torah says 2 things. He shomer lecha ushmor nafshecha me'od. Now that's a double terminology. If you notice that, it says, he shomer lecha, be careful, Ushmor nafshecha modo, guard your nefesh very much. So the Mefarshim say over here that there are two. There's guarding your body. We have to take care of our physical. We have to be careful physically. Ushmor nafshecha, and even me'od, and even your soul even more. But we have an obligation to take care of our physical health, not to do anything foolish, not to skydive, bungee jump, ride motorcycles, and so on and so forth. For those who are considering skydiving, riding motorcycles, or riding a motorcycle out of the sky. I'm not sure exactly what it is that you're planning. All sorts of new things. I once saw a picture that I told you any similarities to real life here are purely intentional. We used to get the Guinness Book. When my kids were little, we'd get the Guinness Book. My wife would kind of white out all the poopy pictures, and the kids would look at it and felt, show the kid what goes on in the world. So I remember there's this one picture of a Japanese guy who he jumps out of an airplane. He's got swimming fins, and he's got something else, and he jumps out of an airplane, and there's another airplane that actually throws the parachute to him in midair, and he kind of has ways of shifting his body till he catches the parachute in midair, and then he parachutes down. I tried it a couple of times. It's not that easy. And he got a parachutes down. So we're looking at, I'm showing my kids, and then there's one picture of a guy standing on the wing of a plane. I don't remember what he was doing. I just remember my kid was about 9 years old. He looks at me and says, "Abba, hu mishuga?" Is he nuts? Yeah. So we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't, anything that's dangerous for physically, we don't do. We're not allowed to do. And then we have to be careful about our neshama. Now, number one. Then the Torah says, and this is what I really want to get to, make sure you do not remove it from your heart. That means if you've learned Torah, don't remove Torah from your heart. How do you possibly remove Torah from your heart? How could you possibly remove Torah from your heart? What do you mean remove it from your heart? How do you remove it? We just learned makos. Remove makos. How do you remove it? You learned it. How do you remove it? So there's a line in Sherlock Holmes. Tell me you've never heard of Sherlock Holmes. Have you heard of Sherlock Holmes? Oh, you're so sophisticated. Wow. See, so there's a line in Sherlock Holmes when Watson first meets Holmes. So he starts telling about Copernicus's theory about the sun going around the earth, going around the sun going around the earth. So he meets him and he starts talking about Copernicus. And Holmes goes, "What's that?" He says, "You never heard of Copernicus' theory?" He says, "No." He says, "What is it?" He said, "Well, it's the theory that the earth goes around the sun." Right? That's what it was. The earth goes around the sun. That's why the church, did they want to burn him or something? Or was the sun goes around the earth? Whatever his theory was, I think the earth goes around the sun. So he tells it to Holmes, and Holmes says to him, "Oh, well, now that you've told me, I'll do my best to forget it." He says, "What?" He says, "Why would you want to forget it?" He says, his expression is, "What the deuce does it help me? Does it matter to me if the sun goes around the earth or the earth goes around the sun? Lamai nafkemina. What kind of difference does it make to me?" And what he was saying, he says the mind, he sees the mind as an attic. It can only store a certain amount of information. When you put one piece of information, it pushes out another piece of information. If you put in useless information, isn't that profound? Because Chazal say that one piece of nonsense that goes into the head pushes out a piece of Torah. So how does a person remove Torah from their mind? You remove it by getting involved in nonsense. And to put in the nonsense, it pushes out the Torah. And that's what it says over Pen Yisurim Ovavcha. And that's a Mishnah in Pirkei that says, Achi Yashev Yisir. A person is culpable for forgetting Torah. The Mishnah says, but that's only if you sat down and removed it. How did I remove Torah? How do you remove Torah? You remove Torah. The more you're involved, the more I'm involved in nonsense, the more it pushes out Torah. The more Torah persons learn, the more it pushes out the nonsense. It takes time. It goes on after years and years. It takes time. But the more nonsense, the more Torah it pushes out. Now, what does the Gemara say? How many times do you have to review your learning?
40 times.
40 times. There's a story that Reish Lakish memorized something 40 times after he heard it. He made sure to review it 40 times. And how many times do we have to review it? 101 times. And the Gemara says you can't compare somebody who's reviewed 100 times to somebody who's reviewed 101. 100. You can't compare. You can't compare. A guy reviewed something 100 times. Another guy reviewed it 100 times. I guarantee you, you review something 100 times, you're going to be doing very well. And the Gemara says, you ain't no dome. You can't compare somebody who reviewed it 100 times, somebody who reviewed it 101. Can't compare them. I can almost guarantee you that if I learned the Daf Gemara 100 times and you learn it 101 times, there would be almost an imperceptible difference between our knowledge and our mastery of that Daf Gemara. So why does the Gemara say you can't compare it? Anybody got an idea? Can't compare them. Ain't no dome. Why not?
It's showing I'm going to my next 100.
Excellent. Very good, chat. In other words, it's you can't compare the attitude. The guy who learned it 100 times, I'm done. The guy who learns it 101 times says, I'm on my way. I'm on my way to the second 100. Very good. I'm on my way to the second 100 now. It's an attitude comparison. I'm never done. I'm never finished. Okay. But if you learn it 101 times, will you remember it well? Will you remember it well? If you learn it 101 times, good. Listen to this. The word zachar, zocher, zachar, remembered, Zion, I'll put it up on the board for you. Otherwise, I won't remember. Zachar is 101. Zachar is 227. 227. It's also the number of male that we spoke about. Male is Zachar is 227, which happens the same. Zachar is a bracha, the same gematria, 227. Male is bracha. Won't talk about female now. Male is bracha. Shachach, forgot, is shin is 300. Chaf is 20. Ches is 8. Shachach is 328. What's the difference between them? 101. Add 101 to remember, and you won't forget. The difference between remembering and forgetting is 101. Pretty cool, yeah? So that's a, again, you review something 40 times, you're doing well too. But if you do 101 times, it's embedded in the kishkis. Okay, now I want to show you something amazing. Take a look. We're going to skip on ahead now. Take a look at page 962. So the Torah talks about Moshe Rabbeinu keeps reviewing not getting involved in idol worship. Now pay attention carefully. This is absolutely phenomenal. The Al-Shich HaKadosh. Ki solid banim uvnei vanim. You'll have children, graduate v'noshantem ba'aretz. How do you translate the time? You'll have been long in the land. You'll settle the land. V'ishchatem v'asisem pesel tvuna is called. Then you start making idols. V'asisem hara b'nei Hashem elokecha lachiso. Then you start doing evil in the eyes of Hashem and provoke Him. So there are different opinions here what the Ra is. Morality, idol worship. I call it witness, ki avod, the heavens and the earth. Ki avod tovedu maher me'ala oretz asher atem ovrim es hayarden shemal yishta. You're going to go lost quickly from the land that you're crossing the Yarden. Lo sarichun yomim aleha ki shameti shamedun. You're not going to live long on the land because you're going to go wiped out. And then what's going to happen to you? Vehefitz Hashem eschem ba'amim. Hashem's going to scatter you. Galus. V'nishartem mesei mispar ba'goyim. You're going to remain few. Asher yenaheg Hashem eschem sham, where Hashem scatters you out. Now watch this. What will happen when you're among the goyim? Pasuk 28. Va'avaretem sham Elohim. Ma'aseh yedei adam. You're going to worship gods made by men, human manufactured gods. That's why this word Elohim is not got Kedusha to it. It's referring to idol worship. Eitz va'evan, wood and stone. Asher lo yirun, they don't see. V'lo yishmun, they don't hear. V'lo yochlun, they don't eat. V'lo yirichun, and they don't smell. So you're going to get scattered. Gods of wood and stone. And by the way, there are those that have suggested that this is a reference to Islam and Christianity. because in Christianity the God is wood. It's the what do you call it on the cross? The hockey player on the cross. I told you he got nailed into the boards, and so it's the cross is the wooden symbol of the wooden God, and the stone is the stone in Mecca. The Muslims, they make an annual pilgrimage to Mecca, and I've spoken to Arab cab drivers. You have to go at least once in your lifetime. Sometimes it's the end of the lifetime when you go, because they get kind of out of control there. But when they go to Mecca, whatever they do, there's the final ceremony. There's this massive rock, and they have to walk around the rock 7 times, and they throw stones at this rock. Once in a while, they miss and hit each other, I'm sure, but they throw stones at this rock. So there are those that say that the idea of gods of wood and stone is an allusion to Christianity and Islam. Okay, be that as it may, the Alshich asked the kasha over here, which after I heard the kasha, we should have thought of it ourselves. Because he says, listen, there are gods of wood and stone. They don't see, they don't hear, they don't eat, and they don't smell. If you've learned Gemara, what do you conclude? Make a diuk. These things they don't do. But to talk and to walk and to drive and to play tennis, that they do. Why didn't you just say they're gods who don't do anything? Why are you telling me these 4 forms of, they don't do this, that, this, that. What about it? Tell me something else. Tell me something else. I want to just say they don't do anything. So you don't imply that there are things that they do. So the answer here is, according to the Alshich, you see, what were the forms of worshiping idols? Sacrifices, wine libations, bowing down, and burning incense. So it says, lo yirun, they don't see. That means these gods have no appreciation for those who bow down to them. V'lo yishma'un, they don't hear when people, what do you call it? They don't prayer. V'lo yochlun, they don't eat the sacrifices. V'lo yirichlun, they don't smell the incense. That means when you get involved in these idols and you use all these forms of worship and there's no response, so what's your next thing going to happen? What's going to happen to you at that point? Ubikashtem misham es Hashem elokecha masasa. At that point, you're going to start doing tshuva. At a certain point, you're going to turn back. You search out God with all your heart and all your soul. Now you'll notice that this pasuk, it starts with the plural and ends up in the singular. Ubikashtem misham es Hashem elokecha. Umatzasa is singular already. And then kisidrishenu b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha is still the singular. So why does it say ubikashtem? The answer is that a person should never become discouraged. Sometimes the person who's doing tshuva is because there's a whole group. Me and my buddies, we all used to hang out together. One day we decided, let's go to Ohr Somayach together. Or let's go start going to shul on Friday nights together. Let's do something together. That's one way people do tshuva. When you're part of a group, you do tshuva. There's another way of doing tshuva is that a person as an individual, a person says, you know what, I think I'm going to do tshuva. What about my society? What about all my friends? Sometimes it means leaving your buddies behind. It's a hard thing because you break with your friends and you embark on your own path. Not easy. That's not easy. And many people have done it. And that's what the Torah is saying over here. Ubikashtem, plural, es Hashem elokecha umatzasa. You could find him. You as an individual could find him as well. I'll leave you with one question because we'll continue this on Sunday. I'm just going to leave you one question. Not going to answer it today. Take a look at Pasuk Lamed Beis. Pasuk Lamed Aleph. Ki kel rachum Hashem elokecha yarpecha v'lo yashchisecha. Hashem is merciful. V'lo yishkach es brisa v'osecha asher nishba lehem. Will not forget the covenant of your fathers. Pasuk Lamed Beis. Ki she'alna liyamim rishonim asher hayu lefanecha. Ask about the first days. Lemin hayom asher bara Elokim odam al haaretz lemiktzei hashamayim k'tzei hashamayim. Haniya kadover hagodol hazeh. Was there ever such a magnificent occurrence? O hanishma kamo hashama am kol eloki midaber b'toch eish kasher shemata v'echi. Has an entire nation experienced God? Has anybody, and the Torah says, has anybody ever made this claim? Has anybody even made the claim that God spoke to them as a nation? This is already said 3,500 years ago. And so far, the track record is good. No nation has ever made this claim that God spoke to them as a nation. That's a pretty good prediction. That's a pretty good prediction. You see, you got the fundamental right there in the Torah. But I'll leave you with a question. If you translate literally the words Ki she'alna liyamim rishonim means, the plain context, the context is ask about the past, right? Ask about the past. Has anybody ever done it? But if you translate it literally, it translates to ask the days. Talk to the days. Ki she'alna liyamim, ask the days. Liyamim, ask the days. How can you possibly ask days? How can you possibly ask days? Right? It doesn't make any sense. So that will answer Ms. Hashem on Sunday.
Thank you.
All right.
That's your answer. It's speaking about self.